I'm Angela Morabito with Campus Reform, and you're watching 5 Big Questions. Today, Congressman Ted Budd is here to talk about his new letter to Education Secretary Miguel Cardona, asking him not to unilaterally cancel student loan debt. Congressman Budd hails from North Carolina's 13th district and is here today to talk about higher education. Congressman Budd, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Angela. Great to be here.
So your letter, it isn't about if student loan cancellation could happen. It's about how it would happen and how the Biden administration might go around Congress to do this on its own. What sparked your concern here?
Well, personnel is policy, Angela. And when you see Toby Merrill being appointed to the Deputy General Counsel at the Department of Education, it's very concerning. There's the argument that the Secretary of Education has unrestricted authority to cancel federal student loan debt. I think that's a really dangerous precedent to set, and it's blatantly unconstitutional. The department has very limited authority to modify debt in certain circumstances, and you could imagine, like circumstance of permanent disability or death or public service. If you come to work in a congressional office, it's a form of public service. And, there can be a discount or delay or deferral, things like that, but nothing as related to this pandemic and continually pushing off these student loans, which we see Toby Merrill arguing for now.
What we're seeing from the Biden administration is a reversal from the late days of the Trump administration, when there was a memo at the Education Department that said the department cannot on its own unilaterally cancel student loan debt. Now you have Toby Merrill, as you mentioned, saying the exact opposite. So what changed?
It's textbook example of classic executive overreach is what you're seeing. They don't have the authority to do so, but the Trump administration felt the duty to follow the law, and the Biden administration just doesn't feel that same compulsion. There's two things I'll point you and your audience to in the Constitution. One is Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. No money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law. That's what we do on the House floor. Congress makes the appropriations, and that's not what they're doing here. So they're essentially spending money that they don't have the authority to spend. Article 4, Section 3 gives Congress the power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. The law is clear. The department does not have the legal authority to cancel student debt en masse. And I would just mention those things earlier: permanent disability, public service, a few other things they could do it for, but they don't have the authority to just wipe student debt off like they're trying to do right now. But what you see is the Biden administration, they push every single legal boundary to implement their radical policy agenda and push us towards a socialist nation.
And right now we're in an interesting time for student loans. We're in the middle of a student loan freeze where the federal interest rate is set to 0 and people don't have to make their monthly payments until early 2022. Now, this was something that started when the coronavirus pandemic first hit, but it keeps getting extended. Do you believe this is a trial run for mass loan cancellation?
I do. You remember Rahm Emanuel, never let a crisis go to waste, right? That's exactly what they do here. So there were lots of measures that were needed early on in the pandemic. We didn't know exactly what we were dealing with. And look, I don't want to make light of the pandemic. It was very, very serious, particularly for some. And we want to take care of people medically. But there was a student loan freeze, enhanced unemployment, eviction moratorium. All these things are, if pushed continually out into the future and not curtailed, they're really a socialist experiment. This student loan forgiveness is one of them, but it's clear that Democrats have used the pandemic to test out a lot of their socialist vision. We probably remember not too long ago, the Democrat whip James Clyburn. He said that COVID was, and I'll quote, he said, "It's a tremendous opportunity to restructure things to fit our vision." That's basically saying what Rahm Emanuel said years ago under Obama. But we need to push for a return to normal as well as the student loans, and also in regards to the size of government. We need to be reducing the size of government and giving people more freedom. And these freedoms come with a lot of penalty down the road.
One of those penalties down the road might be economic ramifications. And from your position on the House Financial Services Committee, when you look at the possibility of canceling $10,000 for everyone, like the president has proposed, or canceling $50,000, canceling all of it, like members of the squad want, what would the financial ramifications be, not just for people who went to college, but maybe people who never set foot on a college campus or have paid off their loans already? What does the impact look like for them?
Well, Angela, there is no free lunch, right? I mean, this is the free lunch that the left is offering. Well, it might sound good to a student who's struggling with student loans, or it's expensive, especially early in one's career, to pay hundreds of dollars per month, perhaps. But what you see is a shift in wealth, and you see it as a socialist wealth transfer, because these are people that are upwardly mobile. They're going to be making more money, but you're going to see, because of that forgiveness, more of a false demand, and you're going to see a spike in prices. We see the same thing happening with government intervention in healthcare. We've seen it with housing bubbles, with government intervention in housing. But the vast majority of students, they don't actually have a college degree. They're not headed to college. Maybe they've used trade schools and are gone and done on-the-job education, and they're upwardly mobile as well, but they just don't have that college degree. So they're not going into what we call the professions. So look, this gives benefit to high earning and potentially high earning individuals. But I really think it's just a wealth transfer further to the upper class and the elites, and not out there to the hardworking, tax-paying individuals. So it's very, very concerning for those who have done it the right way. They've paid their student loans. Maybe they did go to college and they've paid their student loans, or they saved up beforehand, or parents or grandparents helped them through college. So this is a real disincentive for those who for years and years have done it the right way. It's demotivating to them, and it's motivating to those to want government to do more and more for the individual.
At the heart of all of this, when you talk about early in their career professionals trying to pay down their loans, or people further down the road, the core is that college is just so expensive. So if student loan debt cancellation is not the answer, not the way we want to go, what is the solution here that would bring down the cost of college for everyone?
I think we need to stop subsidizing universities with unrealistic loans to millions of young Americans. We need to encourage trade schools. We need to encourage on-the-job education, community college. That feels like, for me in North Carolina's best kept secret. I go in there, mechatronics, robotics, these are high-paying, low-debt solutions. And I think we need to realize that education is a lifetime pursuit. It's not a 4-year pursuit. It might be 4 years, but it should be over our lifetime. And for those of us who went to college, we remember those that came back a little later. They were older than us, that were, maybe they were in their mid-20s or late 20s, and they came back to college, and they were always the smartest ones in the room because they were focused and they knew what the purpose of college was for. But I really think we need to pursue less expensive alternatives and make sure that government doesn't intervene like it's doing right now. It's just creating another bubble, again, like we saw with housing and like we're seeing with healthcare as well.
Lifelong learning and a sustainable college system, all just so important. Congressman Budd, thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Angela.